Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to an early review of one of the brand new LEGO Technic sets launching March 1st, 2023. This is set number 42155, the Batman Batcycle. And it is the second Technic focus set that we got for the Batman film, which came out a while back. The first of which being the Technic Batmobile, which you can see right here. It is pretty interesting because this is our first kind of large-scale DC set in a long time. It's not really a DC set, it's kind of like a Technic DC combo, but cool to get another one for the Batman movie. I'm excited to share my thoughts on this motorcycle, and I know some folks want to see some comparisons to other LEGO Technic motorcycles, so do stay tuned to the end of the video to see that. And so, without further ado, let's just jump right into the review of the Batman Batcycle. Here is the Batman Batcycle. It will retail for $50 on March 1st, 2023, and is our first larger scale DC set in quite a long time, because DC has kind of been defunct at LEGO for the past couple of years, mostly because the LEGO Superheroes theme shares a shared budget across Marvel and DC, and Marvel has honestly just been putting out more successful content and movies, which means that DC has been a little bit left in the dust. However, this is based off of the Batman movie, which came out around last year or 2 years ago, and it is a pretty faithful recreation of the Batcycle as seen in that movie, which, to be honest, because of the movie's gritty and realistic tone, wasn't really that much of a Batcycle, rather than just a mostly black motorcycle with a little bit of a Batman detailing on the top, but nothing too crazy. So, this has the same functions as most Technic motorcycles. There is a very easy to use kickstand, which you can deploy here, so you don't actually have to balance it whatsoever. It just balances straight up like so. However, you can fold it up if you want to drive it around. The handlebars are able to be moved to swivel the front wheel like any other motorcycle, so you can kind of have it be turning or reversing in one direction, so that is how you steer this around. It specifically has a special piston inside, so a little bit hard to see that being working or actuating here, but the way it works is that the chain wraps around this wheel here. As you spin the wheel, there is a piston on the inside of the model that does spin back and forth. It is fully covered up by system brick building details, but if you really zoom in, you can kind of see it going back and forth on the inside there. If you really look right here, that is where you can see the piston going back and forth. There it is, just rotating inside the model. And it's mostly there just for viewers or builders who are able to build it themselves. Just know it's there, but it's just not really that visible, which is the case with most Technic items. This does have full suspension, so you can push the back here to have some suspension on the rear. You can also have the front have suspension using pre-existing pieces. There are really no new motorcycle or new pieces in general created for just this set in particular. It is reusing different techniques that LEGO has used to make motorcycles from LEGO Technic in the past, such as the brake disc elements, which are introduced in an older LEGO Technic motorcycle. Otherwise, that about sums up all of the functions of the model itself. You've got suspension, you've got steering, you have the chain actuating for pistons. You don't really need anything else besides that. Now, I do want to make a few notes in terms of the shaping and detail for this particular motorcycle. Comparing it against the real film thing, it actually is remarkably really close. I remember when images of this first released, there were a lot of complaints about how it didn't really look like a Batcycle, but again, after you compare it to the actual film model, it's actually quite close. They even got the transition of the two black pipes here transitioning to a more faded away silver on the back. It's not as good of a gradient as it was for the actual model. There it was more ending in silver, starting in black, but I think it's okay for what you can accomplish with Technic pieces nowadays, and it has pretty much all the different functions you would want. The shocks do look remarkably similar to the actual real world, or I guess real prop vehicle that it was used for this, and the only thing that I will say could have been maybe a little bit improved is that the front of the cowling here for the front part of the motorcycle does feel quite gappy, especially when you look at it from the side. It is supposed to be bent like this, but here it's bent at a very extreme angle. And I think if this panel was just a little bit larger, like if you had a little bit of a bigger panel here, that would have solved a lot of the issues, because as it is right now, from the front, the shaping looks pretty okay. I'm pretty happy with the shaping in general. This looks fairly good. But then when you rotate it on the side, you get a very obvious gap here where, looking at the side view of the actual thing, either this extended a little bit further down so it's a little bit more covered up, or this extended a little bit more up. Again, it's not that big of a deal though. It is not really a big problem. It's just something I figured I would mention because out of the shaping for this model, that's really the only complaint I can think of. Otherwise, this is a pretty decent looking model. I am pretty happy with how it plays. It, of course, is very fun to just roll around like a motorcycle. You can actually drive around by using your fingers to slide the wheel back and forth, so you can have that full suspension as you're racing it through the city streets. And it is a fairly basic build, all things considered. It's not really trying to do anything new, but it's a perfectly good licensed replica of an actual movie vehicle. And in my opinion, the shaping is definitely a lot better than the previous Technic Batmobile that we got for the Batman movie, where I felt the shaping on that was just not that great. Here, it's actually a lot better in my opinion. Now, one thing I do have to mention, and not to be that person, but a thing that does bother me a little bit with the model here are those red axles. And the thing is, we know that LEGO does have the capabilities to do these in black. They have the capabilities to do them in both black and red for the same set, depending on visual consistency, and specifically for a lot of 18+ LEGO Icon sets, they have specifically included black versions of the Technic pins here, or the Technic axles, specifically to allow them to not show off or to not have a very glaring red color on the exterior. This is not an 18+ set. Again, this is more meant for kids, so it was a set that I guess they made a few compromises on, especially because it was something that is made for a younger age range than a lot of larger Technic sets. Specifically, this is a 9+ set. It is meant to be built and designed by kids, so they had to include them in red because they basically were worried that kids would have trouble figuring out which were the difference between the pins versus the axles if they were all in black. I understand it, but it's still, as an adult collector, it does feel a little bit jarring to me to just have them be very obviously in red for so many different parts of the model, which I do feel detracts from the model in general. Imagine if all the red pieces here were black, I think that would have looked a lot better. Can't do much about the blue because LEGO has long discontinued the black version of the pin-to-axle converter, but at least the red ones, they definitely could have done something about that, but again, it is mostly meant for kids. Honestly, with that, we've about wrapped up this review of the Batman Batcycle. Not much I can say about it other than the shaping is fairly good. The detail is nice. I like that spinning the wheel. Oh yeah, there you go. You can actually see the gears spinning on the inside for the pistons there. Always good to have the pistons brought into the motorcycle. And while this doesn't really do anything too different than other Technic motorcycles, I've definitely been much more blown away by the shaping and curvature and builds of larger motorcycles. A lot of those, like the Motorrad and other stuff like that, are 18+ sets. This is half that. This is a 9+ set, and for only $50, I think it accomplishes the goal fairly well. Finally, to talk a little bit about value. $50 for this feels okay to me. I would have liked it to be $40 or $45. I mean, we always like it when things are cheaper. But to be completely fair, I do think that the lowest LEGO could have charged for this, it's pretty bulky, there's large pieces, and it is fully playable, and you have the pistons on the inside. Definitely feel that $45 is probably the lowest they could have gone for it. So maybe it could have been, or should have been, a little bit cheaper, but it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't feel that overpriced to me. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the building process. It felt like a very simple, standard Technic motorcycle build, and when nowadays we're getting more increasingly complex, large motorcycles and cars for Technic for the 18+ brand, it was nice to kind of go back to a more simpler design. On a final note, comparing the Batcycle to other LEGO Technic motorcycles may seem a little bit unfair, because LEGO Technic has been giving us some absolutely incredible motorcycles over the years, which absolutely do not fit the same bracket that the Batcycle is meant to be based off of. Especially looking at their most recent offerings, a lot of the motorcycles they have done over the past have been mostly focused around giving us adult-oriented style builds with extreme accuracy to real-world vehicles. The closest possible comparison is probably an older LEGO Technic motorcycle back in the day when they were still doing things for kids, where you can see the scale is pretty much the same as some of the older classic LEGO Technic motorcycles back in the day several years ago, whereas compared to something like the massive BMW one, it doesn't even come close to the size whatsoever. Still, it's really cool being able to just take a look at how LEGO Technic motorcycles have evolved over time. There definitely are quite a lot of them, and this is the most simple template that you can get for any sort of Technic vehicle. So that's what I do appreciate about it. Feels like the most standard form of a Technic motorcycle that you can get, especially compared to the absolutely crazy and wild other Technic builds that we're getting from motorcycles for the 18+ line. Alright, and with that, we have summed up our look at the Batman Batcycle. This is a pretty interesting new LEGO DC Technic collaboration set. Again, Kind of weird that this is basically the only stuff we're getting from DC nowadays, although if rumors are to be believed, there will be more Batman sets coming this summer that are actually minifigure focused. Still, it's cool to see another movie licensed Technic set. I think it was a pretty average build. There definitely have been more interesting motorcycles, but it actually does capture the source material fairly well. And it was fun, just getting another DC set randomly. With that, we've summed up our look at this set. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you plan to pick this up when it goes up for sale on March 1st, 2023? And I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Thanks, and bye for now.